In today's video, I speak to Rob Rubix. Rob runs his own website called Autistic and often makes a video series called Small Talk. He works full-time in CAD, computer-aided design, and designs architectural features. So in this video we speak about him growing up and what it was like to get a late diagnosis of autism and how it changed his life. We also speak about coping strategies and techniques that helped Rob, but we also speak about his path into employment and what made him want to become a computer-aided designer. We also speak about small reasonable adjustments that every employer could make in a workplace for somebody with autism and how more employers should be supporting people with autism. Hi guys, and welcome to another video of the MaxiAspie special series Autism Connections. And today guys, as you can see by the intro, I have got a special guest on the show today. So please welcome Rob Rubix. So Rob, thank you for coming on the show today. It means a lot to me. One of my first questions is how is coronavirus affecting you at the moment?
Well, obviously it's been a bit of a challenging time for everyone. In some ways, it's been a bit hard for me being autistic because I've had to go through a lot of changes. First of all, we went from sort of in my job working from the office, and we started working from home, which actually once I got into it, I didn't mind too much. And then I was furloughed as well, which is obviously another change on top of that change. So I was just getting to the routine of working from home, and then I've sort of been furloughed. But it's not been too bad. I think just keeping into a routine. So I've been trying to get up at the same times and doing what I normally sort of do, having lunch at the same time now, just to try and keep a bit of normality, really. I'm also kind of having to do a bit more shopping than I would normally do, because I've got elderly parents that I'm doing the shopping for because they're sort of shielded. So I don't normally like doing supermarkets for the obvious reasons. But I'll be honest with you, the 2 metre distance, I'd actually make supermarket shopping easier than what it is normally. So, I'm coping all right with that. So it's a big change, but I'm obviously doing the best I can, like everyone, really.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a computer-aided designer working in the construction industry.
Yes, that must be hard. I mean, how did you get into that?
When I was at school, to be honest, I was always sort of like a creative kind of person. I used to sort of enjoy drawing and things like that. And I did sort of A-level design, and I really liked technical drawing. And at that time, CAD was just starting to happen, drawing on computers more. So I kind of saw that, and I was just like, yeah, this is for me. So I kind of went from there. I didn't quite get into my first job, wasn't involved doing that. It was basically just a first office junior role, and it was a bit of obviously at the time I didn't have my diagnosis or anything, so it was a bit of a strange time and strange transition period. But then I managed to get a position doing CAD, and I really enjoyed it because at the time it was almost like a special interest for me. So I was really hyper focusing on things, and I did really well, and I've basically been doing it ever since in various roles. But yeah, it's just brilliant. I really enjoy it.
So I'm asking everyone this question. So, what is your connection with autism?
Okay, so I am actually autistic. I got diagnosed at the age of 38, which was about 4 years ago now. Bit of a textbook cliche story, really. I always felt that I was different and couldn't figure out why. Went through the usual sort of traumas and tribulations growing up and going through school, work, etc. And then I kind of stumbled upon it. And I know a lot of people say this in sort of like through books and TV, and I just like, oh, that sounds like me. And I know that's a cliche and everyone says that, but it got me thinking, and I started to do a few tests and things, and I just thought, yeah, this is it. So I went for a diagnosis and basically got it confirmed, and it was like a real euphoric moment for me. It really it was like being born again almost. And now it sounds a bit ridiculous, but I finally understood who I was. And after I'd gone through the period of that, I kind of wanted to be more active with people and sort of raising autism acceptance and awareness and everything. So, which is why I kind of went down the route that I did.
So how did you find the diagnosis stage? you have any other conditions?
Okay, well, to be honest, I didn't find the diagnosis any sort of problem really. The hardest part was sort of getting, because I am actually married, so my parents are quite old, as I mentioned before. So it was getting information from them because they wanted to have interviews with them, and that's something that they wouldn't have been able to do. So what I had to do was get a series of letters written from them. So I got them and from my brother and from my friends, and then I had the usual interviews, etc. And I didn't find that process. I'll be honest, at the time, I was more worried about what happens if they say I'm not autistic, because then I'd be back to kind of square one. And at that point, I was convinced that, this is me, this is who I am. But luckily, as it got to the end of the interview, the guy basically just straight away said, yeah, you are on the spectrum. So that was a bit of a shock and a bit of relief at the same time. I don't really have any other conditions sort of from a mental health point of view. I do suffer really badly with anxiety, and I always have, and I have had a few bouts of depression in my life. But apart from that, I'm pretty much just me, really.
Just tell me about yourself as well, I suppose, just tell me about yourself.
That's great. I love that. I really do love that question, because it's not something you get asked very often. You normally get like the small talk kind of questions, especially at work and stuff, which are just like, it's nice to sort of have someone just say, oh, what about you? Well, I have lots of interests. Obviously, as you know, I run my website, Autistic View, and that was kind of done after my diagnosis, because I wanted to sort of spread awareness and acceptance, and basically just to tell my story as well, really, which I always found that for me, the key thing when I got my diagnosis was connecting with other autistic people and hearing their stories and what their lives were like. It kind of helped me, and it's a two-way door. So, I wanted to do that. So I have lots of hobbies. My main kind of special interest, I'm really into cubing, Rubik's cubes, and sort of the twisty solvy puzzles. So I have a large collection of them, and I spend a lot of time sort of doing that kind of thing. I'm also very heavily into sort of maths, which kind of worries me as an autistic person, because I know it's a stereotype that, I worry that people are like, I'm helping that stereotype, which I don't want to do. I just happen to have an interest in maths and geometry, which if you think about my job in CAD and the cubing and stuff like that, so anything linked to that, I kind of have an interest in as well. But yeah, so I'm married, and I've been married for many years. My partner's neurotypical, but she's absolutely wonderful, and she's amazing, and she copes sort of with my weird intricacies all the time, sort of thing. So she's a wonderful person. We also have 3 horses. Her hobby is riding, so I get to sort of spend a bit of time with them now. I help out with that. So yeah, which is really good, and I know there's a lot about animal therapy, and it really does work. So yeah, so I have a busy life, really, but yeah, it's good. It's all good.
I mean, how did you meet, and your partner, and did you think you would ever find love with autism?
Well, at the time, obviously, I hadn't had my diagnosis, so I wasn't aware that I was autistic. I'd gone through stages of like wanting to end up in a relationship, and nothing was happening. And funnily enough, I got to a point in my life where I was quite happy on my own. And then I wasn't one for going out much. And then one night, some people I work with kind of persuaded me to go out, and I hated going out. Obviously, the sensory issues and things like that. But I kind of felt sometimes you have to just sort of do these things, even if you don't really want to. So I went out, and I just ended up bumping into her. And then she was going around a few places that we were going, and it was like I was following her. And we just got talking, and one thing led to another, really. And we do have a lot, we had a lot in common, because like I say, she had the horses, and I was actually having riding lessons at the time. So that kind of sparked an interest. And yeah, it just went from there, really.
Just one bonus question I didn't actually have prepared, but do you think there is a lot to be said about animal therapy and autism? Do you think it helps a lot?
Yes, I think it does help an incredible amount. I think animals are obviously a lot less complicated than human beings, so they're easier to be around. So you can get that kind of affection and that kind of acknowledgement from them, that when you enter a room with a person, it can be like, I can't understand I can't read your body language. I don't know how to communicate with you. You know, you're very aware of the brain, another brain being in the room. Whereas with an animal, I know they've got brains before anyone says anything, but it's a lot easier to understand. And, you know, there's research into things like having a pet and a dog and use blood pressure and stuff. So I think there's a very kind of relaxation and natural thing for being around animals in terms of a therapy. Also, I think what's underestimated as well is that there's a lot of sort of reward to be had from looking after them. So I work in an office like you normally, and sort of at the end of the day, to go and sort of have to feed the horse and clean the horse out and help with that, it's kind of such a different environment. It's really relaxing. It's in the outdoors and it's fresh air, etc. So it's a great, but there's also a reward that you are able to care for something. So I think sometimes it can be difficult, sort of, again, with people. I've had people come to me with problems and stuff, and I don't know how to help them. I want to help them, but I can't. Whereas animals, it's a lot more simple. So as a therapy, I think it's really, really beneficial.
What was it like, just in general?
It's a tough question, really, because, like I say, I wasn't really even aware of autism. You know, at my era, obviously, I'm going back now 30 odd years, and a lot of people with sort of autism, and they were in like special classes, and they weren't mixed with the sort of mainstream schools and stuff, which I don't know. It was difficult to have any kind of involvement with those kind of people, which was a real shame, and I really regret that now. You know, I might have even understood more about myself if I could have had more time with them. I know for a fact that a lot of them that I know, like, were much nicer people than some of the people that I was stuck with. So it's really, really tricky, really. I went through the usual thing. I mean, being different, I was bullied, and it was problematic. And there was things that I weren't good at. So I'm physically not good at sport and things like that, which seemed to be like the way into getting friends and stuff at my school. And yeah. And it was just something I wasn't good at. School for me, it was more about the academic, the learning, and everything else just was a complete failure, really. And it's different time, and I'm really pleased to see that things are changing with modern generations and stuff as well. And I know people with autistic children that are having much easier routes now than what we ever did when I was like at school all that time ago.
I mean, what was school like for you, and how has employment been with you?
Yeah, like I said, school for a start was quite traumatic. I didn't kind of get the point of it until I kind of got to sort of, 12 onwards, when I started to get a thirst for knowledge and learning, which was more what I was about. You know, I couldn't do it socially, but then I could do it academically. And then it became kind of like, I just wanted to learn as much as I could about everything I could, really. And I got really good grades, and I went through my GCSEs and A-levels and got really good results. I didn't want to go to university because, quite frankly, I was quite scared of it. You know, the whole thought of leaving home and going somewhere else, and I just couldn't face that. And to be fair, for many years, I was a bit of an idiot about it, because I always used to say, oh, it's because my mum and dad didn't want me to go, or because you don't need a degree, and it's really stupid things I used to say, when the truth was I was literally just scared. So it kind of, looking back, I can reflect on that now. So I went straight into employment, and like I say, I've been lucky enough to be employed ever since. I mean, I know you did that fantastic film, how difficult it is with, autistic people and employment, but I've kind of been really lucky. And I'm really lucky that I'm also in a company where I've disclosed, and they've been really, really good about it. They've made changes for me, allowances for me, and they also allow me to bring my positive traits to the table as well. So I'm really lucky, and I know I'm lucky, and I just wish that more autistic people could get into employment, so that their skills and that could be a real benefit for any company that they're in.
No, thank you for watching that video as well. it's amazing. Only 16% of people with autism are in full-time work. What do you think employers could do differently?
I think the biggest thing, more than anything, is the understanding. Really, the level of understanding, and just sort of getting to know people better. And even if you don't understand something, just sort of try and put yourself in the other person's shoes. Which I know is a very weird thing for an autistic person to say, but I've heard stories of people that they're not happy at their desk and they want to change in desk, or they want to sit somewhere else, and it's just been like, well, no, you're not doing that. And it's like, well, why can't you do that? It's such a simple thing. And I know it doesn't make sense to you. You think it's just a desk, but to that person, it's such a great, why does it even have to be questioned? So I think just more of an understanding, really, and kind of, and also I think don't concentrate on sort of the things that autistic people can't do. Concentrate on the things that they can do and what they can bring to the table. I think that's very, very important as well. I've got a unique way of thinking, and like I said before, I'm quite lucky that my company use that. I'm not always always right. I get things wrong just as like anyone else. But there's been times when I've been able to help, and I think it's about respect and trust. And to be fair, it works both ways as well. Autistic people, at the same time in employment, need to understand that a business is a business trying to make money, and they need, but it shouldn't be at the detrimental effect of the autistic person's health. That's the key thing.
What do you think people need to do around autism, and what annoys you the most about autism? Lack of understanding or arrogance of people, except things like that.
To a degree, just sort of be themselves, but also be understanding and be engaging, because I think there's a lot of resource on autism and autistic people, and there's a real danger. And I think this sometimes one of the things that doesn't, you could read something and then think that that's all autistic people. And autism is a very, very vast spectrum, with many people at different places on that spectrum with different abilities and different problems. So just like anyone else, you've got to get to know that person and understand, what is it about them that's good, and what is it about them that needs a little bit of help, and offer that, and try and just get that understanding and acceptance and awareness, really. And, the key words that keep coming up, but that's all there is to it. And yeah, I don't think there's any sort of substitute for basically just engaging and talking, but talking in a way, that's on that same level as that person, and by that I mean, don't just do the small talk and did you see the football, ask that person what makes you tick, what are you into, you're an autistic person, I've heard about special interests, what's yours? Because an autistic person loves speaking about things like that, and just having that 5-minute engagement with a person can make all the difference to their day. Just like if you were into football and you were talking to somebody about football, it doesn't always have to be the same topics all the time. Find out what makes that person tick and engage with them.
And just because you said that, I'm going to ask, what makes you tick and what's your special interest?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that cubing's my special interest. Rubik's cubing, yeah. I've been into it for as as long as I can remember, really. And it doesn't just be the 3x3. I've got puzzles from sort of different shapes, but I've also got a 17x17, which is the biggest mass-produced one. So yeah, so they can take hours to solve. So I enjoy doing sort of that. Like I said before, maths and that also makes me tick. I enjoy solving geometrical problems. I also like TV, like everyone else. I watch science fiction, I watch TV shows, I read. I tend to read, funny enough, more textbooks and things rather than novels, which I'm told is odd by my work colleagues, but each to their own. And yeah, I just get myself into everything. I think sometimes, and I know I've spoken to, there's another guy I know who's autistic, he says this about himself, something will spark his interest, and then he's got to go out and find out everything on it, buy all the books, do all the research, and I'm kind of like that. So I do go through phases of being sort of into one thing more than another. And then there are certain things like cubing that I'll just come back to, on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, absolutely. So, last question is, I've seen your website, and I love your website. I love your Twitter videos. As I say, I think they're informative. I think they give that message that you want to give out to people. So, my last question really was, what plans and news have you got coming up?
Right. Okay. Well, one of the advantages of being furloughed at the moment is I've been able to do quite a lot of videos. So I've got quite a few bank of them to sort of publish. I tend to sort of release them on Twitter every 2 weeks. And the idea behind the small talk videos is that I just wanted something because I did start off doing longer ones, and I just, with work and horses and everything else, I just didn't have the time. So the small talk thing was like a breath of fresh air idea for me, because it means I can just do snapshots and people can quickly watch them. It doesn't take up hours at a time. Because I'll be honest with you, I love the autistic community. There's loads of people doing some great work out there in videos, but sometimes it's hard. You get people release 3 or 4 half-hour videos, and then it's like, I can't really find the time to watch these just yet, and I always end up having a backlog. But for the website, I'm just going to keep going with the small talk videos, really. Like I say, I've got a notebook that I keep lists of ideas, and I've got 30 odd ideas in there. So it should keep me going for quite a while. And I try to do kind of little unusual subjects as well. So I've got a couple coming up on one on good anticipation and one on bad anticipation. And then I've got some coming up on collecting, or kind of collecting going on to hoarding. And then I've got plans for various other ones as well. So they'll just keep coming in the same light. The blogging side of it, I've kind of pulled back a little bit because I wasn't getting as much sort of traction with that. But hopefully I will start that up again at some point. But just at the moment, I just want to concentrate on the videos because they're fun to make. But thank you very much for looking at the website there and everything. I really do appreciate that. It's great, and have people sort of come back and give you some feedback and that. Appreciate that.
No, it's my privilege. Well, thank you for coming on and talking to me. It honestly means a lot, and these conversations are really just informative and of raising awareness. So thank you for coming on and speaking to me, Rob.